And so if you're going to disrupt any system, you have to fail and fail and fail, because if you're not failing, obviously you're just doing what everybody else is already doing. When I think of this company, I think of my name, and I think of like, what am I standing for?
Do you know how many pints of ice cream you sell a day?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know we serve about 70,000 people a day at Jenis.
Crazy.
Follow your instinct and trust your gut. Your intuition is your superhero skill.
All right. Well, welcome to Business Untitled. We're going to get going here. Co-star Mike Novogratz.
Mel.
My co-star Mel Carter is missing, but he's going to show up. Mike's going to talk about that in a minute. But today we are really excited. We have Jeni Britton from Jeni's Ice Cream, legend in the ice cream industry, true entrepreneur. She's got a really interesting story, and I love ice cream, so I'm really excited to have her here. Jeni, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Most people love ice cream, but there are a few people who don't. So
Yeah.
I always hear from those people too, which is pretty funny.
I love
Mel
ice cream.
actually
I know,
likes
most
ice
people
cream.
really
I'll be
love
speaking-
ice cream.
I'll be speaking for Mel.
wish we
since
had
he's
some
not
ice
here,
cream,
but he
actually.
likes
Mike,
ice
where's
cream.
Mel? What's
That
going
was
on?
a
I have
mistake.
no idea the guy's late too often. We had to start. Jenny had a tight schedule.
Yeah, exactly. I have a very tight schedule.
Blaming it on Jenny.
Yeah.
That's why I was here so early. And
So how ice cream?
How?
How? You were Ohio.
That's an interesting question. Most people say, why ice cream? But how ice cream? I have to think about this for a minute.
He means why ice cream, I think, to be honest.
So I was, I studied art, or I thought I was studying art. I was studying art at Ohio State University. And I had a friend who was a perfumer, who was in perfuming. He was from Paris, and he was studying perfume and scent at Ohio State in the chemistry department. And I started to think about scent in art. And like, can you use scent in art? Can you use scent to like make and transport people and just make something that's not like a perfume? And I was playing around with that, and then I started using it actually in ice cream. So I used ice cream as a carrier of the scent. So that was one of my first projects, and realized in that moment that ice cream is all about scent. So the most inexpensive artificial vanilla, it's all about scent. It's butterfat, and you scent the butterfat with the vanilla, and it is the perfect carrier of scent because it melts below body temperature. So as soon as it hits your tongue, it relaxes, and all of that beautiful scent volatilizes into your nose. And that's chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, peppermint, all of these beautiful ingredients from the farmer's market. So I started making ice creams right then with flowers and herbs and everything from the farmer's market, and I literally walked out of an art class in 1996. It was a figure drawing class, and I was just kind of done with figure drawing. I was done with drawing. Mm-hmm. And I went and made ice cream, and I started in a little farmer's market within a few months after that.
Were you like in 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, the good kid in art? Was
Yeah.
that your thing?
Well, yeah. Yes. My whole family, art is kind of the perspective that we lived by. And my grandmother was an art teacher and an artist. And my mother, my grandmother is on my dad's side, and my mother also was an artist.
Wow.
So, and had that art perspective. So yeah. So it was really like this
In the water.
And also, like we were very counterculture. Like my mom didn't believe in, oh gosh, homework. Like I didn't do homework from K through 12. I didn't do homework once. I moved every year too. So, I was always in trouble, and it was always like my mom kind of getting us into trouble because we never learned to do homework. We never learned to like just be in school and like do the things the
What'd your
normal way.
parents do? Hippies?
Sort of. I mean, they were kind of nomadic. My mom was in arts, graphic design, all sorts of different art things. My dad was, he was the guy that would fix the cash register if it broke at like Sears, so he always had like a beeper. And that was, he worked for NCR. Yeah, that was his job.
So art background. I want to ask, so you got yourself to Ohio State. I know you're from Ohio, right? You're from Columbus originally? Okay.
Well, I'm actually from Peoria, Illinois.
Okay.
And
you're from
I
Illinois.
moved to
Okay.
Ohio when I was 12.
And when you were 12 and then went to Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
And as this is all starting, and you're getting interested in this, you dropped out, right? For your business?
Yeah, I didn't I don't know if there's like an official way to drop out. I just walked out, and I never went back.
Okay.
I didn't like go to the counselor and say, this is my last day here, or sign any papers or anything. I just left.
You just stopped.
Yeah,
you just
I just
stopped
stopped going.
Right. And what I wanted
He's
to
here.
ask.
Mel.
Yay.
Oh, wait. Mel's here.
He made it.
Well, we're only like 2 minutes later than
We're on.
Mel,
air.
we're live. Let's go. Let's
We're
go.
live. Get in there.
it's great.
What's up?
We'll
Hey,
catch you.
Jenny, it's so nice to meet you. No, it's all right. We're actually like kind of early, so I think it's all right.
Born in Illinois, moved to Ohio. Family was in art.
Yeah, and
She was in art.
and we're just talking. What I was interested in, because we do a lot of founders, a lot of entrepreneurs, and a fair number of them, right, find that dream early, and whether it's drop out or just stop going or whatever it is. But were you pursuing a passion when you did that, or did you know what you wanted to do at that point in time?
I knew that I couldn't work for anybody else. I wasn't going to be able to do the normal path because I just didn't do well in school. I didn't like being in school. I didn't even like being in line. Like I didn't like doing the things that everybody told me to do, and like following other people's, ideas and rules. I just didn't like that. Even though I was a very shy, very quiet kid, just wanted to be invisible everywhere. It's just, it was hard for me.
So interesting because usually rule breakers are loud and.
See, but it's just those are the ones you notice.
Himself.
Yep.
Give us 3 of the great rule breaks you did growing up.
3 of them. I mean, never doing homework for the K
that's
through
a good
12.
one.
That's a huge one because that takes effort. It's actually easier probably to just do it than to go to school every day and try to figure it out. Because you either have to do it in the hallway or on the way to class, or you have to explain why. But I mean, I was just like, I'm not sure that any of the rules that I broke were like epic. I mean, I was just like leaning out the window and smoking cigarettes and doing everything I could to just have fun in school and not be stuck there.
And so you got into ice cream, fragrances a little bit, ice cream a little bit. You founded Scream, is that right?
Yeah.
Right, another ice cream shop at that point in time where you were being super artistic, I read that you said. And then at some point in time you shut that down or transitioned and started Jenis, which just for scale, so you guys know it's got like 80 locations, they're in Whole Foods, right? I mean, you could tell us about the scale a little bit, but it went from being like really like a one shop deal to like a big company.
And like, this is like the American dream, the American story, the start small and build American story, which is like, it goes from the farmer's market to $150 million company or whatever, But that's over 26 years. Mm-hmm. That was 10 years of me waking up every day going to the farmer's market. So
wow.
So a decade of my life,
And maybe
was
the best
just
decade.
going. I mean, I could never do it again. It was brutal, but it was the coolest and most fun adventure ever. I was so motivated. I was so excited.
This is like 20 to 30 too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the whole time I thought, this is going to fail tomorrow. This is it. This is the last day.
Did
There's
you make
all
enough
sorts of
money
reasons.
to take care of yourself while doing it?
No. The first 4 years I made $638 a month. That's what I
Wow.
took home. That's what I took home to live off of. And even back in 1998, like that was not enough. I mean, I
Even
had
in Columbus, Ohio.
Even in Columbus,
Columbus.
you could not. I mean, I didn't have a car, so run a business without a car. I mean, luckily I had the farmers and the farmers market, and I could trade ice cream for some ingredients and for food.
Yeah.
I did have a car for a little while, then it broke down and I got rid of it. But I slept in my car for 3 months. So I lived in my car, and I used to go to the fancy neighborhood where I graduated high school. Didn't go my entire life, but graduated high school in this really fancy neighborhood. And I knew the street with the tallest, best trees where I could be like kind of hidden and also safe. Mm-hmm. And I had my like Chevette, my
I had a Chevette at
1986
one
Chevette. Those are the best cars, actually. They should bring them back. I could do everything on that car. I could fix this. I could change the spark plugs. I could do the oil. I mean, I got the entire exhaust system replaced at Kmart for $79.
Yeah.
But I slept in that for 3 months too. So yeah, so $638 a month. Yeah.
How many people
Wait,
for?
I want to
sorry.
just get into because for like 10 years, just tell us about that trajectory 1 second from 10 years of that and then how you scaled. Because I think it's really interesting. You just started from like jump, going to farmers markets.
Yeah, and I always felt like we were going to be the next Ben and Jerry's. Like that was the
That was
the goal. That was the vision. And I thought, honestly, this is what I was in the grocery store. I saw Ben and Jerry's. I love Ben and Jerry's. We all do.
And they started what, mid-'80s?
1978. And at that point, I thought they were kind of an old company. So that's kind of interesting. Less than 20 years old. And it just takes a long time to build a brand, but they were still on a very big trajectory. They were still very much on the rise at the time. And I remember thinking, I had seen their story, I'd read some things about them. And I remember thinking like, these guys aren't that smart. Like they're hippies, like they're fine. Mm-hmm. Like I can do this. They're not like Harvard Business School graduates. They're not people, they're building this incredible company. Like I can do that too. In my own
and
way.
an ethical company. They were like one of the first big ethical companies.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also been very inspiring, of course, as well. to our company and to so many people. But yeah, they were of that generation of a few
And so
companies.
when I grew up, it was vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. Those are your three choices. Or maybe lemon sherbet. And all of a sudden with Ben & Jerry's, you got all kinds of different flavors. I don't know if they were the first one, but you mint chocolate chip and cookies and cream and all these different.
Well, cookie dough's their big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every company kind of has their big flavor.
Did they start that?
They did. That was their flavor.
And your pivot was?
The pivot was kind of that sort of story-driven ingredients. And ice creams, I think that appealed to more of this generation, which it's interesting because it's still going. This trend is still going. So their trend was like big chunks, kind of junk food. Like you just smoked a bunch of, like you just got really stoned and you want to eat ice cream. And
it worked.
It worked on everybody, whether you were stoned or not. And that's great. And then ours was more about flavor, scent, ingredient-driven,
Lavender
story-driven. Yeah. It's interesting when you start to look at the history of ice cream, which I know probably better than anybody else in the entire world at this point. You see like this sort of American flavors or whatever, but you realize that there have been so many different ice cream eras. And in fact, in America, it's almost like every 10 years, every generation has a different ice cream era. The first ice cream shop in America opened in Pennsylvania in the 1760s. 1760s, pre-American Revolution.
Wow.
Like pretty
We
interesting.
didn't have freezers back then?
No,
No.
we had like salt cellars or whatever. There was like salt, or the salt and hay and the ice cellars.
What's the like 90-second history of ice cream? Where did it come from? What's the trajectory?
Well, I would think just American ice cream. So
Okay.
we can
Yeah.
go all the way back, and there's like a whole bunch of international, of course. But in America, the first ice cream shop is in 1760. In New York, 1790. And you start to look at like the industrial sort of kind of comes in, industrial ice cream like pretty early. So
That's Mel. It's not me. It's Mel. Late and the phone. Double fine.
but we get like the Victorian era. We get the beautiful ice cream saloons and parlors. Now these are really interesting because this is not the 90-second.
Yeah.
There's no 90-second
No,
answer
go
to
on.
any of them. But
No, nobody knows the history of ice cream, so it's
But
interesting.
it's kind of interesting. And my
Yeah.
history of ice cream is a little different than what other people might focus on. But something I thought was really interesting is that like in this era, women were mostly at home and men were more in the public sphere and in our towns and cities. And when those ice cream sort of, they were really like almost saloons or parlors, they were very ornate, opened up, they were like a liquor saloon. Right, but where women could go also, or felt comfortable going. These were a little more dangerous back then. I don't know. So women were showing up in those spheres too, in the ice cream parlors, which I thought was really interesting. And then from that sort of era, then you keep going. You get like good humor. The Eskimo pie, which takes the stick out of the good humor. The coating is really important. You eventually get Nestle, who creates the drumstick, which is actually a technology created at Ohio State University, which is where you put chocolate to line the inside of the cone so the cone doesn't get soggy from the ice cream, the sugar, syrup getting absorbed into the cone. So it can stand up, even after it's been manufactured. And then you get all of these, like you get the whole soda jerk thing that happens pretty rapidly after the sort of Victorian era.
Friendlies.
All of that. But I mean,
Kazoo.
this was a massive thing in the 20s, in the teens and 20s. So we think about this like social media and how fast information travels right now. It traveled just as fast during the soda jerk era, the soda fountain era. Like one person would invent something, mostly guys behind the counter, but some women too. And they would have like 1,200 seat soda soda fountains. So ice cream counter. Amazingly massive places. Every town had a different one. You would travel different towns to have them. This is in like teens, 20s, the Fitzgeralds of the world. And,
And then they have different flavors?
They have different flavors and they have different offerings. And you get known for your offering. And because people were traveling so rapidly between those two places, or the places, word would travel from like Montgomery, Alabama to LA like within a couple of days on some creation that was doing well. I mean, it's amazing when you see how this happens. Before, when you had to get mostly newspapers and like these little magazines to learn what trends were happening. And so that was pretty cool.
So someone invented the mint chocolate chip cone, which is my favorite.
The mint chocolate chip was
chip.
1973, the year I was born.
No way.
And it was invented not in America, but in England. See, now we're doing an ice cream show.
My brother-in-law is British, and he loves ice cream. So every year, people give him ice cream for his birthday.
That's what it used to be. It was called
This year
Mint
he's getting
Royale.
Jenis.
And then they changed it, I think, when it came to America. But
So I want to ask about the 10-year road to being more established than you were and making 600 and something bucks for 4 years straight. How many people, friends, family, because with me, like I did music for a long time for free, never made $1. And we just had another guy on here who is a really big manager now, and he's roughly my age. And he said, I really started making money 2 years ago. But I remember on that journey, my mom, my friends, everyone, it's like, you have to quit this music thing. Your phone is off. You are crazy. And for me, it was just like, what are they talking about? They're crazy. This is going to work. But I did have days where I'm like, you know what? Maybe they are right and I need to quit. So how many, were there people in your life like that? And how many times you actually said, man, maybe they are right? And how many times you thought they were actually crazy?
this is one of my great lucky strikes in life, that I had parents who, my whole family blew up and my parents were out of my life during this time. And so there was nobody to say, don't do it. I was really on my own. And in some ways, obviously that was very hard.
Yeah.
But if I had had people, and I meet people all the time, the same story, like, I really want to do this, but my parents want me to get the degree first, the business degree. And I'm like, why don't you invest all that money into your business, you know?
Yeah.
But in a way, like, that became my lucky break, my lucky strike in a way that I didn't have anybody to talk me out of it.
Well, did you have moments to yourself? It's like, because 4
Well, I
years
didn't have anything
is
else
a
to do.
long time.
Yeah,
You're like
it's
a
a long
pirate
time.
that put the shot his own ship and we're taking the next ship.
It's challenging. It's hard. I mean, but I was pretty motivated because I had this vision. It was brutal. I mean, I sometimes even stayed the night at the market. I mean, you do this. I also felt like,
hold on. Let's be really clear. Not many people do this.
right.
Most people get a job, they go home to an apartment.
Well, in a weird way, it seems like, especially now,
live in a car.
Yeah, or like live in their business. But I was young and it was such an adventure. Like, I saw it as an adventure. I saw it as the coolest thing. And I guess I just never, I mean, there were
That's
so I'll
amazing.
tell you what did get under my skin. People that I knew were graduating college, graduating university, then they were getting jobs, then they had the BMW, and I didn't have a car. Yeah. Or I had somebody gave me a 1978 Volvo, but the driver's side door didn't open, so I had to climb in through the other side over the stick shift, to see your friends kind of become successful and you're still sort of toiling away and it's not catching fire, that was pretty hard. But I also knew I couldn't do that. I couldn't work at a bank.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to be where I go.
Did the product get better between year 5 and year 10? Or did people finally say, hey, this is a diamond in the rough, we haven't been paying attention?
I think it was both. I mean, I think the product has gotten better every year since we started. And sometimes, one part of it, we have to make make one part of it worse so one part can get better. It's like a garden, so we can make one advancement here, we take a step back here, and then we get that back later. So, it's constantly kind of moving forward in quality. And that's everything from ingredients to how we process them and technology and all of that. And now I forgot the other part of your question.
Did
did people just find?
Yeah.
So then, what was also happening is that we were getting a little bit bigger, but word was spreading. So in 2004, we opened our website, and so then we could get national attention, and those that starts to kind of pile up a little bit. So we started opening stores outside of the market in 2007, and then our website started to really go crazy. We got some press, lots of big press in that year. And then we started to see where we were having pockets of fans that we could open stores in other places.
Was the growth self-funded or was it, did
SBA,
you have an investor? Oh, really?
We had, we were just, nobody talks about the
you're
SBA.
rich.
No, not nearly enough
Well,
people
no.
talk to the SBA.
Eventually we did have a partner. in 2016. We took on a private equity partner who are still with us today. But
Who's that?
Castanea, they were a firm from Boston, but now they're different. They're called Stride now. Kind of. The guys that we work with have a new firm.
Got it.
So it's
Yeah,
just
they're
SBA,
great.
and you just built it store by store.
Yeah, so we just
grocery
went back
by grocery.
every year. We wanted to open a new store and got a new loan from them, and eventually that kind of wears out. Like,
When did you pivot to consumer packaged goods, the selling to the
well, right away. So at Jenis, one of the things I knew from the mistakes that I made at Scream is that we have to have consistent flavors, and they have to be packed in pints ready to go for people when they came to the market. And so then once we started pre-packing pints, we started to sell them outside of the market. Well, then that was a whole other thing because once you start selling them to, like, let's say a grocery store, Whole Foods, to resell, now you have to have your license is very different. You have to be licensed as a milk processor by the state ag department, which is a whole other thing.
But in Ohio State, I could go and I could get a cone with your ice cream, right?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Originally, I could get a cone
Yeah.
Yeah.
or buy a pint.
Yeah, or buy a pint, and I would pack the pint, and you would take it with you. Then we started packing them at Jeni, and that was at Scream. And then at Jeni's, I started pre-packing them directly from the ice cream machine, getting them frozen so you could get them home with you. And then because we had those, we could also sell them at Whole Foods. So back then, Whole Foods was like working directly with local companies, so we could actually work with Whole Foods, and all the other smaller companies back then.
We talk a lot about failures that entrepreneurs had, right? And whether it's a failure or just lessons you learn, but when you take Scream, like, what did that teach you, or how did you pivot with Jenis? Like, what are the
Why
main,
did you pivot?
Why did you pivot? Yeah, and what are the main lessons that you learned and changed?
Well, one of the main things about Scream was that I was sort of thinking like an artist still, which I still think like, I was thinking like I could make whatever flavor I wanted to every day, that people would come in, I would be inspired by the market or whatever I wanted to be inspired by. And then that was kind of the thing. So you would come in, you didn't know what I would have that day, and you would be, super excited and inspired by what you found. And what I realized after I closed Scream, we weren't doing very well. I mean, we were by the end, we had our sort of base of customers, but it wasn't enough. But what I learned actually after I closed Scream, and in fact, I know a lot of young entrepreneurs would think the same way I was thinking at the time, which is I closed Scream and I thought, well, maybe we're just like, too early. Like maybe we're, ahead of the time or something like that. And customers just haven't caught up with this trend yet, but, whatever. And that was kind of, okay, well, close that. And I was so burned out anyway. So I was like, go back to school, gonna do something else. And then I went to a local coffee shop and I was like really craving this thing that they had, and they were out of it. And I like got up to the front of the line and I ordered the orange scone, the thing that I really loved. And they were like, yeah, we don't have it today. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have it? That's crazy. Like, it's so good. And like, that's the only reason I'm here. And I realized that was what I was doing to every customer. People would come in at Scream and they would fall in love with salty caramel, which was a big flavor. And I knew people loved it, but I didn't make it every single day. And so that was just a big aha. Okay, you have to have what I now call, or I started to call, the craveable reason to return. So you have to have the thing that people wake up at 3 a.m. and they're like, I have got to get to Jeni's and have salty caramel or whatever. Whatever your version of that is, you have to have that. So that shifted everything. And that then I was like not burned out anymore. And I was just like back, writing a business plan, and it shifted everything. Now the other thing is that at Scream I had like pink hair, and I had vintage aprons and clothes, and none of the food. Back then we had like food critics in every town. You don't have that anymore. But like the local food critic just thought I was an idiot, and like, I mean, he was, probably 85 years old, and like, he had a comb over, and he was like not cool at all, But also like, back then our companies would be made by what they said in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And so he really didn't like what I was doing. And I think he just really didn't like me. And he just really didn't think that this, 22-year-old girl who looks 16 is going to have pink hair. Yeah. He didn't.
Let's dance on his grave though. Now that he's gone.
Yeah, exactly. So then, when I opened Scream, I got into character in a big way, and I put
Jeni's
on,
or Scream?
Or sorry, Jeni's. When I opened Jeni's, I got into this character, and I was like, well, who do I want to buy ice cream from? And I was like, I want to buy ice cream from somebody who's wearing a white shirt every day, and somebody who's wearing a long apron, who looks like they're, ready for customers. So at Scream, when we had like down hours, I would read a book. And I thought, this is great. I'm getting really smart. I read a lot of books.
Book guy.
At Jeni's, I would never sit and read a book, because that just tells your customers you're expecting no customers, right? So instead, I would sweep the front of the store, pretending like, oh, we got to get ready for everybody, And even if I swept the front of the store for 2 hours straight, it was clearly like it didn't need swept anymore. but it was showing people that were walking by like I was preparing for something really big. And so I was always a busybody, just always like trying to make sure that people saw that I was very busy. So those kinds of like tweaks changed everything. We had a line from the very beginning at Jenis, and it continues.
When you hire, so you had to have employees at both Scream and Jenis, and now lots of employees. You look for anything? Was it a good spirit, good personality, something physical? Is it the ponytail, the ice cream ponytail? Like, what's the what's the magic of
Mike is looking for a job.
Yeah. No, it was just people who can do a lot of things, who aren't afraid to just figure it out. You know, just because when you start in a company that doesn't have all of the processes, you know, you're not just going to go open the manual and start doing what they tell you to do. You know, you're coming in and you're joining a team. And for most of Jenis, those were the kind of people we hire. I think still we do, but now we have these incredible training processes that people actually seem to really like. Even though that wouldn't have been.
How many employees do you have now?
Maybe like 1,500.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Does it feel great that, you know, that 1,500 people are, you know, paying their rent and...
It feels so great. And to know that, like, you know, people have met, got married, had babies at Jenis.
Wow.
I mean, that's really cool. Yeah.
You got Nepo babies and you got Neapolitan babies.
Yeah.
So it's funny because yesterday you just said something that I don't know if we're allowed to say it was yesterday, but it was yesterday. We had a wolf pack, and I think it was Mike, if I'm not wrong. We was talking about China, and he was like, not the one thing, but one of the many things America is great at is like kind of almost like accepting failure and breaking it down and rebuilding again, because we were talking about China and
The Japanese.
No, China with the real estate bubble they have, and they just won't let go, right?
Yeah.
But he was saying with America...
That was Dave.
Oh, it was Dave? Sorry.
I said it was the comparison between Japan and China.
In America, we break it down, give up, and rebuild again. And that's kind of, when you were saying that with Scream, I was like, wow, that is what Americans do, because you kind of just broke it down, right? Said, I'm over with this, not try to reinvent Scream 10 times, but just created something new, right?
Yeah, expand it, advance.
Same thing?
Yeah, and it is the only way you actually learn something. And so if you're going to disrupt any system, you have to fail.
Yeah.
You have to fail and fail and fail, because if you're not failing, obviously you're just doing what everybody else is already doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to do that.
So you've done this for 20 years?
More.
Yeah.
I thought you were like, I got you a lot younger than you are then. How many
I
years?
just turned 51.
So 30 years.
So I've been doing it for a long time.
Wow,
Yeah.
you look great.
Oh, well, thanks.
Why did I think 20 years? So 30 years.
Almost, yeah.
You're going to do it for 30 more? Are you going to do another chapter in your life? How do you think about
Well, Jenis
the
is doing
future?
great. And we have an incredible, relatively new CEO, and she's wonderful. The team that I worked with for a really long time, for like a decade, is the sort of creative team. We do all of our graphic design.
So you're
copy,
chairman of the board at this
everything in
point?
there. No, I'm not chairman of the board. I'm just kind of Jeni. You know, that's just what. Yeah,
It's a good title. on
I
your
just
business
get
card.
to support everybody.
Jeni.
And,
Yeah.
But you're
and
still
if they need me.
engaged 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week?
No, not at all. Not at
you're
all.
not engaged.
I'm there when they need me. So I'm in.
And when
I
did
talk to
that
the
transition
CEO.
happen?
It happened during COVID, actually. So I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't want it. I was, pre-COVID, I was the one that I was trying to be there before everybody and leave after everybody, actually just probably like sitting in my office waiting for an
60,
email.
65-hour weeks.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I have 2 kids too. And probably not making the best use of my time, but like it was just what I knew and what I was doing. And the company was doing great, and they know how to do, we know how to do what we're doing at this point. And so when COVID hit, it was just obvious. It just became very obvious. They don't need me in the same capacity anymore. I can, go have another life or whatever. But that's not how I saw it. It was like, it was like cutting my shadow off. It was brutal. 30 years devoted to raising this company, to getting it, to building it from nothing with literally nothing. But like I always say, brain, brawn, and buddies. Like it's just, it was your physical labor with your body. You're bringing this thing to life. And then to have like that realization that you can yeah, you can go do whatever you want. It's like, I didn't have anything else to do. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know who I was.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a personality outside of Jenis. And I was pretty unhealthy also because entrepreneurs are not known for caring for ourselves too much. I mean, we literally use our bodies and I think this is wrong for us to do this, and I'd like to change that. But I had a lot to do on that front too. So I started to run. I started to go to the forest. I started to take care of myself in a much different way and figure out who I am outside of Jenis. So that's 4 years
amazing.
ago.
What's your
That's an amazing story, actually, and doesn't get told enough, I think, which is right, as an entrepreneur, you're on the grind. You're just climbing the ladder. That's all you see. That's all you do, right? We talk about it all the time. And to have that awareness, whether COVID gave it to you or not, and just start to reform. And I think it's really interesting. You said peel your shadow away from yourself because you get so immersed in the business, you don't know where you start and the business ends or begins, right?
And so
Must
many
be
entrepreneurs are
disconcerting.
especially one named after you,
Yeah.
well, yeah, with your
Yeah.
name, know.
where you said, I took on a character of Jeni.
Yeah. So,
That's-
And it's a world that you create. And so I actually didn't even have friends outside of the company. I didn't have a life outside of the company whatsoever. I mean, I had my kids and I had the company and there was nothing else, which is really sad actually, but it was a beautiful thing. And then it wasn't when I realized that was all I had.
So what's this last 4 years been?
It's been wonderful. I've been walking through this portal into this new beautiful thing. I've started another company, of course. Oh my God.
You really started another company.
Yeah, I did. And it's really beautiful, but it was not actually intentional. I was helping other entrepreneurs. And that was therapy for me. So I was helping other emerging entrepreneurs, and through that I ended up finding this other business. And it's good. I mean, it has nothing to do with ice cream, but I see the connection. So we're making prebiotic fiber from produce trimmings. So when you buy, watermelon pre-cut at Whole Foods, we're using the watermelon rind to make it into prebiotic fiber, which supports your microbiome. And so our whole goal is to reverse chronic illness in America.
Wow.
On a big scale.
Yeah.
Through fiber. So I was like, okay, maybe this is my ice cream training. I saw this.
Or you're actually just karmically paying back from getting all these people so fat from eating ice cream.
Well, there you go.
Now you're going to get them healthy.
Hopefully
I got 'em
Jenis
fat,
isn't
I'm going to get them
that
healthy.
company, yeah.
Do you think that I think it's so profound, this thing of stepping away from the business and being able to separate and also being able to recognize wow, that wasn't my healthiest self. There's more out there, right? And to be
We should talk about this because
We should, because that
Yeah.
since you said it, that's been
really
going through my
profound.
mind, and I'm going to share a story.
I want to
Go
have
ahead.
Jeni talk about it, and also I want to
You're
just
in
frame it.
the doghouse for being
You're
late.
in the doghouse for being late. But besides that, and also frame it, if you will, does your womanness mean anything to that? Do you think there's anything that you being, there's not so many entrepreneurs that are women. We do this, and it's harder to find, and so I think it's so impressive in that. And then just, is that a part of that story as well?
well, that would be a whole other podcast episode probably, but but probably yeah. But I would just say I've now talked. I mean, I'm working with lots of entrepreneurs, and I'm the one that people call a lot of times when they get canceled or when something huge happens in the business, because we haven't even talked about the big blow up moment at Jenis in 2015 when we had a recall.
Yeah,
I mean,
hysteria.
there's just it is just it shreds you, but you don't even know it because you're in it. You don't even know how unhealthy you are. You don't know how removed you are from the rest of the world. You don't. It's your world. It's interesting. It's interesting that way. So when I got out of it, I realized that I had so much adrenaline and cortisol and all these things, these sort of chemicals in my body that I didn't know what to do with. And that's when I started running. And actually, the other thing I started to do, which is you'll get a kick out of, I think, is that I started to drive. I started to learn performance driving. I started to work with veterans who had PTSD. I didn't work with them. I started hanging out with them. So there is an organization in Columbus that I support and I love called Vet Motorsports, and we get vets out on the track. So I started hanging out with them because this is PTSD, and I had so much adrenaline and nowhere to put it. I have a friend who's an Olympic skier, and she talks about this. She's like, I need speed every day. I can't not have it. It takes years to get that out of your system. So you're just like a normal walking around person. So I'm driving, and I'm racing. I had the kind of a performance car, but just like a Volkswagen. but I had it all modded out and like it was fast and I had all this adrenaline. So I had nothing to do in these race people on the highway or whatever. Realized I got to get to the track because this is dangerous. So then I started really learning that. I actually did some racing.
Were you like pulling up next to people and be like,
well, the thing is, when you're in car culture, you recognize each other. And so, you know, the people who drive the Volkswagen are modded out. We know each other. You know, you see each other on the highway. So you can just go out and find a little fight to get into and go do it. And that was really fun. I don't drive that car now. I don't need it anymore. But I drove those cars for years and love them very much.
what do you
And I
drive
think
now?
it was helping. Oh, I had the most boring car. But it's actually not. It's the Mustang E vehicle. It's faster and it's twice as fast and half as fun as the Volkswagen.
What's the
was,
fastest you ever did in somewhere illegal zone? Just for the camera.
Well, let's see. In the Volkswagen, I would go over 120 pretty regularly.
Oh, wow.
Because, you know, when you go to Cleveland, it's all straight.
Yeah.
And you can go uphill too a little bit so you can see further in advance where the police are. This is like my method. Cleveland's great. So I would drive to Cleveland a lot of times in the morning, like at 5 a.m. And so there's nobody on the highway. So I would never do this if it was a crowded highway.
Yeah,
like I'm not a weaver or whatever. You know, I'm not
What's the
trying to like,
fastest
you
you
know.
ever did?
I did do a race, which was really fun. Which, okay, this is like not even like, it's not a fast, it was an autocross race, but which is really cool. So you have to like walk where they put cones out in the middle of the lot, like a massive parking lot,
Yeah.
and you have to walk it. You only get one chance to walk it. So you have to memorize it, which my brain does not work that way anyway. But I was just doing it with this organization. And so I spent the whole weekend learning how to race Camaros and autocross. But I came in last every single time. So another failure story. Every single time, to the point where the announcer was like cheering me on, like as a special person, because he was like, please cheer Jeni on because, you know, we want her to come back and keep learning. And it was great.
funny.
I would spin out and, you know, whatever. I was awful at it. But like what happened was it would soak up the adrenaline. Now I've talked to a lot of other entrepreneurs. You don't even realize that you have so much adrenaline. I'm like a very calm person.
You're not that calm.
No, but I mean, like, I think people sort of, you know, it's like I can be very patient and very like, you know, even.
Yeah.
You
I can
know?
feel your adrenaline.
Yeah, well, when I start talking about that too, I get really excited about it. But now I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and this is a real issue. It's a real issue. So people who are stepping away from their companies have to then figure out what to do with all these chemicals that are in their bodies, and they have to learn how to take care of themselves.
So we talked a little bit about it. You've been in Ohio, and now chapter 4. You're thinking about maybe not Ohio.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I've been in Columbus my entire life, and I travel a lot, which is great. But I almost half the time at this point in my life. But I would love to like actually live somewhere else. It'd be really, really cool, or at least half the time.
In the U.S. or somewhere else?
Probably U.S. I mean, I have lots of friends in Berlin. I love
How do you get
Berlin.
friends in Berlin living in Columbus?
Well, I dated a guy in Berlin. I have a
That helps.
yeah. I met him, online, and then started visiting him, which was great, and it is great, and I still visit him, and meet everybody over there. He's in film, so he's in the arts there, which is great. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's just so much. Yeah, there's so many great places. But I think I think I would stay in the United States. New York is high on my list.
New York is
The other one's
best.
high on my list that I've never been to is Santa Fe. I don't know why, but I always think of Santa Fe as like
I've never
somewhere
been
I want to
there.
go.
it's
I'm not sure why.
Good to visit, not to live there.
I like nature, so New York is hard for me on that front.
There's a lot more nature around here than you think.
Yeah.
The when I first moved here, we went out to the Hamptons and the Hamptons. What's that? New York's got some of the most beautiful beaches in the whole world. 2 hours from here, you're at the beach. Another
That's
hour.
what I mean. When you're
up-
flying, you can see them.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
it looks
it is
good.
a hard city to like hit nature every day. You got to work for it. There's the park, but I'm saying like it's not like L.A. Everyone's like,
Yeah.
not that, what
Or
I mean?
Ohio, where I can
you
just go to
gotta
the
get
forest
Because the
outside
Hamptons
of it a
still
little bit.
is like the Hamptons. You're
Yeah.
not, if you want to just run outside real quick, 20 minutes. It's like a journey to go to the Hamptons. So yeah, it is kind of hard to hit nature.
But there could be so my new company is based in New Jersey, in Vineland, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So there is so somewhere around the area. I mean, there are. It's actually really beautiful. We don't.
Yeah, New Jersey's
I was
probably
born in
more
New
like
Jersey,
that.
and I don't know, on an army base, so I didn't live there very
Fort
long.
Dix.
Monmouth.
Monmouth, yeah.
And then we went to Germany, and my sister was born in Stuttgart on the army base there, and then we went back to Illinois. And so, but there's actually beautiful land all around there, and there's a lot of agriculture. because I was born in New Jersey, people have always told me like, you know, or given me the impression that New Jersey is not like a beautiful nature place that it is though. It really has beautiful places. So somewhere close, like there are places we can be like close and still get the train. I've gotten very used to the train system between here and Philly and DC and New York. So
Yeah.
it's pretty great.
We're going to get you into the city, actually.
Yeah.
You've earned your way into the city.
Yeah.
We'll send you plenty of places to get your nature in.
How come the woman comment was a whole nother podcast?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on how I think women are really uniquely suited for entrepreneurship in a different way, and how entrepreneurship is a way for everybody to rise above whatever they were born, you know, into. And I think that it's a way for us to sort of, in a way, create more equality in America, because it's a sort of, you know, start where you're at, build anything you can imagine, just have a big vision, you know, the willingness to work really hard and never give up. So I think that women have been, and I have a lot of friends, and I'll connect you to anybody that you I have a lot of friends. I feel like there's so many women starting businesses now, and even like I'm raising money for Flora, the new company, and even in VC, there's just more and more of that, which is really cool. And there's a lot of hope for the future along that front. But I think that women are really good at, and you know, I don't want to put people in categories because people cross over and there's gray areas or whatever. But I do think that women are good at feeling what other people feel. And so I think that, it's empathy, but I think entrepreneurship is 100% that game. So, you know, business is a linear game, which is beautiful in its sort of elegance, I'll put it that way, but it's a very different thing. And so you can put them together and they can work really well together. But it's a different way of looking at it. So when you're starting a company, you really have to be aware of emotions, all emotion. Even when we're talking about Flora, you know, at Flora, we only work with consensus science, the science that passes international consensus. And so, and there's a lot of it. And we can tell you why you should be eating fiber and why it reduces chronic illness and, you know, all of that stuff. There's a whole bunch of that. But we know that no one cares about that, because if they did, they already have that information. It's already available. You know, and your doctor can't tell you can't get you to change your diet. Like, you're not going to do it. We have to be emotional. Yeah. And so understanding that is something I think that women are really good at. And the other thing women are really good at, the women that I've been around in my life, are connecting with each other, sharing best practices, opening up, listening, learning, you know. And so it's cool. So I think there is something about that. I wish that I had not been on my own when I was young, and I had trusted myself more, because I didn't have that network that now exists and that I'm trying to help create for women too. So I had a lot of guys in my life that were very, very linear thinkers, which was in some ways good for the business and in some ways really terrible for me, because it was sort of like pat you on the head kind of thing. Right. And I think that we could have done much better to see those strengths more. Even in my story, even in my own company where it's named Jenis, and I was there every day.
Yeah, profound. You know, Jenis is a B Corp too, right? B Corp, am I saying it right?
Same as
right.
Warby Parker.
Right, Warby Parker.
Greg Renfrew's company.
Yep, Greg Renfrew's. Yeah. So we've had,
I love her.
Yeah, we've had a few different, but probably only, I'm going to say 10% or maybe 15% of the companies that have been on here have been that. But
it's hard to get that certification. It's hard.
It's hard. I wonder if there's more women that get that certification than
I
on a weighted basis. You know what I'm saying? On a weighted basis, right?
Maybe,
I don't mean on an absolute basis, but
well, and the big, what we found with being a B Corp is that was how we raised the company, the farmers market. These are the values that we came from, and we were already doing it. So we applied. We got the certification. We didn't have to change very much to get it. But what we've learned from that and from all of this back end stuff that you'll never learn about as a customer, most of customers, because you're just there for ice cream and to have fun and to share with your family and friends and be on your date or whatever. And we don't have the space to tell you about all the things that we're doing behind the scenes. It's really not about marketing. It's not about people. People generally don't care that much about the B Corp label. Right. Some people who do, but there are very few people. But where it really matters is in talent. In acquiring talent, getting the right people to work for you, because people who want to work for Jenis, they know our values. They come to us for that. And so we've been able to get really top talent, even in Columbus, because of that, because of our values, because we've made them very known to the world. And your company is your people.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was just thinking about when you said that, more women than men. I come from a family of 7, and I have 3 sisters that all are entrepreneurs in their own way, and they're all in impact, right? Some version of a B Corp. And I have 4 brothers, and none of us really are. We're in pretty much straight business.
Right.
And so it just gives you some sense.
But you can think about like, I mean, so I've also started a nonprofit, and that's like the most ridiculous, inefficient way to
What does
make.
your nonprofit do?
Well, it was a long time ago. It was called Local Matters. It's still around, but it was about. I mean, it started as connecting local farms to people and food and whatever, but then it became about food justice and getting fresh foods into the food deserts and so on, and sort of drawing attention to that. But just like being on that grant train constantly and like trying to find people to. I mean, that has been the entire job, and I'm like, we are a group of chefs, like creating this organization. Why don't we just sell something?
Yeah.
You know, and then do whatever we want with the money.
Right.
Like it's just, to me, it was just an easier path. We didn't end up doing that, but I still think it's an easier path.
It is, and it's also worth talking about. And right, it's a polarized world. It's rich versus poor. It's all these things. It's like, what's the solution? It's like, you know, in a sense, that's coming together with like values and profits, right? And you're on one side or the other if you're just a regular corp or you're not for profit, right? Not for profit, you can never exist. All you do is hustle for money day and night. Most of your money,
And you
ends up
never have
going-
enough.
You never have enough. Most of it just goes to feeding that whole beast. And then on the other side, most of these just straight C corps, for-profit companies, it's like you're really stuck in a box where every little thing has to be maximizing profit for shareholders. So there is no room for values
Corporate
in
law,
that.
literally, Delaware corporate law is the board is only allowed to think in terms of maximizing profit for shareholders.
Yeah.
And that's why the B
not
Corp
employees,
exists.
not communities, not nothing. Only that. Right, I'm saying
Yeah.
like
I mean, I'm sure some
strict. Yeah, it's changed a little bit, but that's where corporations started basically, and it like puts you in opposition to a lot of other things in the world we live in now, right? Which is changed.
And the interesting, I mean, you know, on the other side too, from my point of view, is like I've always, even at Jeni's, like I have to remind our company that we don't have to do anything but be welcome into the neighborhoods that we're at. If people are welcoming us, if people want to work for our company, if farmers want to work with us because they know they're being paid fairly and they feel like they want to, go the extra mile to grow the special strawberries for us. That's the good we do in the world. Is, we don't have to support every thing that comes our way or whatever, or try to be too much to too many. We just have to be a company that people want to exist in the world. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Where's the Jeni's footprint? Is it Ohio? Is it all that broad area?
Yeah, I mean,
Midwest?
we're all over the country, and we have our almost 90 stores, and then of course all the groceries. 4,000 or 6,000, I can't remember, groceries.
But your store, so you have stores all over the place.
Yeah.
So it's not just because I was going to say, you're in Ohio. We live in New York.
We don't have a store in New York yet, and we've been trying for years and years because we actually it's one of our top shipping destinations. So when we started to grow, we were opening in our top shipping destinations. So it was LA and New York and Nashville. And we've still never been able to find the right location in New York.
Why is that?
I think there's multiple reasons. It's hard to do it here. It's a different place. It's a very different, I mean, the
rents are spectacular.
The rents are crazy, but also, I mean, that and then the landlords have owned the land or the for generations. Like they just don't have the same motivation that other landlords do. But the other thing is that
there's so many places in New York where the ground floor is empty, and you're always like, why has the ground floor been empty for 2 years?
Because the landlord doesn't show up to the meetings because he doesn't care.
There's also another pretty simple solution for that, right? Which is pure capitalism, but it's capitalized value of that rent stream. So if you're going to rent something for $100, right, and it's worth 20 times that, right? So it's worth $2,000 on a multiple, but you hold out for it to be worth $110. Even if you go a year, right, in that context, now it's worth $2,200. So you held it a year, you lost that $100, right? But you just made it up in the cap value of that real estate, in a sense. So that's why that system doesn't work. You get what I'm saying? It's like, so you have to really legislate around that to some, I think if I was legislating that, like affordable housing, I'd make some version of local businesses. Now that wouldn't necessarily help Jeni's in this context, but it would have helped you when you started out, in terms of stores with less than 5 locations need, special consideration or they get a discount with the rent.
We started Jeni's in the market. It was $20 a square foot. I I mean, that's like, it was like $400 a month.
Yeah.
Like, it was nothing.
Yeah.
And it was already food ready, food safe. I didn't have to do any build out. But also I was going to say that our top store, one of our top stores and top 2 is in Alpharetta, Georgia. Alpharetta, Georgia, an hour outside of Atlanta. It's in like a mall. It's a space that's like as big as this room that we're in now. It's a small space. It has a counter. You walk in, you get the ice cream, you walk out the other side. There's nowhere to sit. It's just in and out. And that's our fastest. Why would we want to be in San Francisco when there's a million Alpharetta, Georgias? Why would we want to be in New York when we're paying so much? We'll never be able to keep this store for very long. You know what I mean? It might be a marketing thing for a little while, but so it is it's like a sort of thing. Like, we either have to make it work for companies like, ice cream shops.
What other ice cream brands do you look at with a smile?
All of them.
But like competitor, like who do you think you compete with? And
gosh, I don't know. When it comes to stores, I don't know. I mean, I will say I'm still I still look at Haagen-Dazs and Ben & Jerry's as the ones, to beat in terms of quality and I mean the experience of eating their ice cream, but also what they put in the ice cream, and how they do their businesses, especially Ben & Jerry's, and then also size, of course. And I actually really love to see, so when I started in ice cream, there's think about ice cream family tree, right? There's a couple of them, couple trees. There's the heritage American ice cream family tree. Haagen-Dazs is kind of that. Graders in Ohio. Every city has their heritage American ice cream shop. It's a lot of mahogany wood, ceiling fan, a little chair with the iron, whatever. These kind of look. This is a heritage American sort of thing. And then there was Ben & Jerry's. And then there were all across America, in fact, all across the world, there were people on the Ben & Jerry's tree. So you go to Whitefish, Montana, and that store actually still exists. Wow. And there's the ice cream shop that the mom and pop, maybe the pop opened because he was so inspired by Ben & Jerry's, and it literally looks like it's on the Ben & Jerry's tree. They've got big chunks, they've got cows, they've got clouds and blue. And now what you see kind of all around the world actually is businesses that are on the family tree of Jenis. And so it's women, it's and this is true in I met women from Cairo Creamery, Cairo, Egypt. I went to Cape Town, South Africa, and met women who had started a business from my book. But all across America too, you'll see businesses that they have similar tile. They're telling sort of ingredient-driven, story-driven flavors. Lots of it connected to the farmers market, and that's something that I'm really always just high-fiving and super proud of. I do feel a little bit bad because I think we made it look easy, because it looks like so much fun to make ice cream all day and sell ice cream all day, and it is for a point. But it's also any business, it's physical labor and mental and emotional labor, and it's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's worth revisiting. I just want to highlight the going back to not just the B Corp, but just the aspect of entrepreneurism, creating jobs, right? Creating because I think it's worth mentioning that there's too much focus, in my opinion, on not for profit and blind philanthropy. We talk about this sometimes, but I think you can call it micro philanthropy, supporting mentoring, patron, whatever you want to say. But I think that's such a key to solving the problem that we're in today, which is this rich-poor dynamic that just keeps pulling apart.
See, I agree with that. I think entrepreneurship's the way out. I really think that. And I've been trying to get the attention of the SBA. Administrator Guzman has become a friend, get grants. So I started Jenis with $30,000 from the SBA. With actually $1,200 from a friend that I bought a machine from, and then I made it at my home for a year. And then a $30,000 SBA-backed loan from a bank. Now, I will tell you, I had to have that loan, this is in 2002, signed by my boyfriend at the time. Because guy who's got a job, whatever. I mean, it was it's sort of not cool.
Yep.
But why can't we give $30,000 or maybe it's $50,000 now, grants to people to start businesses? Because you can do a lot with $50,000. And I think start small and build slowly. So now when we look at these ideas are being thrown around with the tax breaks of $50,000 in the first year, and this is all really important.
If President Harris asks you to be the the head of the SBA, you're going to say yes?
I will be there in a heartbeat, or just whatever. I don't know about the head of the SBA, but like I would be there. I would be the support and cheerleader and
We got you online. You're
all
going
of
to take it.
that.
You're going to take the job.
all of that.
I'm calling.
Well, Isabel Guzman is doing a great job. She's out there.
Who's
She's
President
great.
Harris?
Exactly. It's 50-50.
Come on.
It's actually not 50-50 anymore. It's slipping away a little bit. I mean, it's like the betting odds are now like 55-45.
I drove
So
through
who's
Ohio.
favorite?
I mean, I drove to Detroit, and
Trump, he said.
Yeah.
what's that?
The betting odds have moved to Detroit, but I think we're not going to know till the day of.
Yeah, you're not going to know. Even 45-55, 55-45, you flip a coin 20 times, it's 11 to 9, right? So, I mean, you flip that coin, you don't know what's coming up every time if that's the odds. Do you know what I'm
I
saying?
don't
What's
know.
Ohio feeling like?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Ohio had this big ballot initiative last year. We did a couple things last year. We had abortion made it a constitutional amendment, and that was overwhelming.
Yeah.
I mean, people came out for it. I think we're going to get the same kind of thing for this. I mean, we'll see.
Abortion is on the ballot in 7 swing states.
Yeah. Well, and now we've got Supreme Court justices that are now up for on the ballot this year too. And if that goes one way, all of this that we worked for last year is going away. So I mean, all these people are going to come out in support of that too. So that'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, I drove to Detroit the other day from Columbus. It's like a 3-hour drive, but you have to almost you can go the highway, but like it's actually faster just to go through the country, through rural areas, and it's a nice drive. And so I saw so many Harris Wall signs that I don't normally see in Ohio. So I have this, I mean, Ohio is probably not going to become a blue state, but we are 45-55. So we're messed up right now because of gerrymandering, which is we're also putting on the ballot. I'm very active in Ohio in these measures, but gerrymandering hopefully is going to be corrected again. We're not that red, but it was interesting to see all these signs out.
It's so interesting. So many places are both going blue to red, red to blue. It'll be fascinating. Yeah. We're going to have an episode after the election.
We'll bring Jeni back. Yeah, go on.
I'm in the doghouse, so I don't get much
Oh,
questions.
yeah, okay. You have to raise your hand.
Mike's always putting you in the doghouse. Honestly, what is
I love it.
It's racist.
We started early, by the way. That was the thing.
Make fun of his
I think we
outfit
kind of
today?
started early too. I like your outfit.
Yourself.
No, I had a rough
It's a study in tan.
entrepreneur one of those days.
It's good.
It's a study in
It's
tan,
good.
you're
It's a
right.
study
But-
in khaki, is what it is. It's good. I like it.
Mike?
I like it.
Yeah.
I had to get approval from him. But what was the moment that you felt like you could breathe, and not even just breathe, but you was like, holy shit, I made it?
That hasn't happened.
What do you mean?
It's coming. It's
It
coming,
hasn't
damn it.
happened. There is no it's funny. I mean, there was one time where like a chef put our ice cream on the menu, and this was like very early, like 2004.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, this is going to be okay. This is going to work. But in terms of like, I don't have to like when I think of this company, I think of my name, and I think of like, what am I standing for? What am I going to stand up and stand for this company? When something goes wrong, am I still going to stand up for it? Am I going to go in and fight who I need to fight to get that back to being right? And that's still like so active. And yeah, so I
You
don't
had
know.
this
The
moment.
fi-
You had this moment of crises in 2015 with listeria,
Mm-hmm.
right? Explain to the audience what listeria is and how it happened and how you dealt with it.
Well, listeria is something that you don't want in your ice cream. It is everywhere in the world. It's in soil. It's in the air. Actually, it's air. It travels in the air. You don't. We work really hard to not get it into any, or to make sure it doesn't get into any food. And the problem with listeria is that in ice cream it can grow even when it's frozen.
Oh,
So
wow.
you've got to be very careful. And yeah, so in 2015 we got a call that said that one pint had tested positive in Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places.
Never liked it.
Oh, I love it. I just went bird watching there this year. The crane migration was amazing. But so that was the call. Obviously, we didn't want to get. It was a terrible, terrible call. We realized too that like even though we had been through third-party audits and we had thought we had done everything right, we didn't really have a good tracing system. So we just decided we were going to recall everything. Like within probably 30 hours after this phone call, we decided we were going to do a full recall, which is massive. So for us, it was this is over. This is over. There's no more. We're not going to be able. The company is over at this point. We will be in so much debt. We're just before. It's like March, early April. Actually, let's see. It was April 22nd, Earth Day, and so we were going into summer. We had all of our production for the summer done.
Wow.
So we just recalled all of that.
And that all melts.
Like we were screwed. And we sent it to a anaerobic digester. So we turned it into power, electricity, which is very cool. Lots of 265 tons of ice cream.
Wow.
Now this is like, ice creams that are made with strawberries that were grown the season before. You know what I mean? We had been collecting these things, banking these things to make this ice cream. You can't just replace it.
Yeah.
And so, so we did that. Nobody was sick. Everything was, we prevented an outbreak. There was no outbreak. Everything was great. We didn't find more Listeria ice cream. We figured out where it was coming from in the kitchen. It took a little while. There was like a hairline crack in the floor under the sink. And we figured that out. We got that all settled or whatever. And then we realized we had just decimated the company. And so then it's like, just kind of walk back slowly.
Take me back for a second. You get the call. You get your advisors around you, the lawyer. Is it just your own instinct? I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to get sick, and therefore, like, just stop.
For us, that is what it was. It was like it was the team. It was our just partners in the company, and we knew what we needed to do at that point. Of course, you bring in lawyers too because you have to you have to create this plan for the FDA, and you have to do. There's a lot of like that has to be done. But we made the decision pretty quickly. Was it
with hindsight? Was it a decision? Could you have done something else? Was there a sneaky way out?
Yeah. Who was doing that at the time was there was another company going through a recall at the same time, and they were really stringing it along, and had been for a few years, and people died.
Wow.
And so it's not cool, and you can string it along because the legal system allows you to do that. You can duct tape all your stuff and figure out how to recall just one part of it or whatever. I mean, there are ways that you can do that. And for us, that was definitely not the right move for us. I mean,
and then how did you get back on your feet? Is that when you took capital?
Yeah, that was when we brought in the company. Now, luckily, we were already going to do that before. And so we kind of knew who we wanted to be with, and they were saints. They held our valuation as pre-recall valuation.
No way.
Because they understood the brand. They understood where we were, what we were capable of. They
Shout
knew
out
the
to
team.
those guys.
No, it's really cool. Yeah.
You're still with them.
And we're still with them.
Yeah, that's cool.
So that was really great. And then we were able to, they came in and helped us create a professional team, a much more professional team. Then we started to really become a professional company. What was really cool about the recall era is that we immediately got rid of everything that didn't matter. So any of the pet projects that everybody had, they were all gone immediately in a second. The only things that mattered were survival.
Yeah.
So what are the things that we do at Jenis that we have to do or we're not Jenis anymore? And if it wasn't that, it was gone. That's actually the coolest thing to go through, because if you don't go through that,
you get a lot of fat.
You do, and it's weird. You will never cut as far as you will when you're in crisis, and it's such a great learning, and also learning about what you're capable of, because you can survive. And the cool thing too is that when you're in that place, the rules change. The rules are different. You can fight differently. You can make decisions differently than you would have.
Even firing people,
yeah.
It's so painful to fire someone, but in crisis, you're like, dude, there's nothing I can do about it.
And
also, exactly. Yeah.
It also got you tight with your partner too, I guess, right? Because they had your back in that crisis. So I'm sure that had dividends later on.
Yeah, it was great, and they were really helpful in putting together then a team, just a really professional C-suite for us, and I think that made all of the difference. It was great.
When's the right time for a company that's growing to take private equity?
I thought we should have done it a little bit earlier, and I think that would have been good for us. I sort of So I think we were in 2015. I think really by 2010, as we started to grow, we had a brand. I had 2011, I had a book, and we had just a book tour, and 100 people showed up at every event. It was amazing. So we knew this was a brand that was well known, and I think we could have raised money then.
What was the scale at that point in time?
We probably had 6 stores, maybe 4 or 5
and
at
then
the time.
By the time you actually did it, you had 40 or 50, something like that.
No, I think we were at under 20.
Oh,
maybe,
under 20.
Okay. 12 or something like that.
Oh, okay. So that's always an interesting question, right? When to let those guys in, question. Right? And when to keep going with your creativity, because often it can sap your energy just having to report and,
when you're ready to really go, big and get professional and like, then that's the time. But you have to also understand as a founder that, your role changes.
Do you know how many pints of ice cream you sell a day or a month?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I know we serve about 70,000 people a day at Jenis.
Crazy. That's amazing.
In the summer, not in January, but yeah.
You know what? I
That's
enjoyed
cool.
being in the doghouse this episode because I learned so much. I'm thinking in crises you could
It gives
fight
you a chance to
different.
listen.
Yeah.
Mel, the listener.
Mel,
There you go.
yeah, Mel's often the listener. Unlike some other people I know on the podcast.
I'm the oldest. I got the great beard, so I need to be the wisest.
I love it.
We always end this episode
Yeah, go on.
with we give
Sometimes we don't, and it going for 3 days.
Oh, well, that's also fun.
we give people an ounce of gold for their final ounce of gold, and you've been wonderful.
Amazing.
Literally, it's a great story. Scrappy girl from Ohio takes on the ice cream world and wins.
Here's your ounce of gold.
Here's your ounce of gold.
Oh, literally?
It's an
made with
actual
ice cream.
ounce of gold that you're going to
Cool.
keep.
Wow.
And
That's
think-
incredible.
Because we trade a lot in markets and
cool.
we're very bullish gold.
Okay.
You should hold on to that gold. Don't give it away.
Yeah.
From doing this
Wow.
podcast, Dave is down
So cute.
300,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though we predicted the gold price would go from 1,700 to 2,700, he gave away too much of his gold.
Oh, jeez. We got to get into the gold game.
But
Good.
with,
It's
yeah,
beginning
with
of
that, we
something
always
here.
ask for your kind of final ounce of wisdom, your ounce of gold for our listeners. And you
I
had
would
one.
say, I think, after my, as you know, very long story, I've lived multiple lives. Like, I feel like I'm like 300 years old, literally at this
you look
point,
like you're
you look
which is
41.
great.
You're
Which
looking
is
like you're
great.
I said
That's
31.
awesome. Yay, that's amazing.
Yeah, this guy.
But it's so cool. But I would just say, looking back, follow your instinct and trust your gut. Your intuition is your superhero skill. And I did that a lot, and then I didn't. And when I didn't follow my instinct, I can look back right now and say, probably 90% of the time, my instinct was right. And it would have been really good for us to follow it. And I stopped trusting myself for, at some point, because linear people came into my life and it didn't make as much sense, but it ended up being right. So you gotta, learn to trust your instinct. You learn to trust your instinct, by the way, by doing it. And then you gotta hold on to that because it's your big superhero skill.
Straight up the
Love
middle.
that.
Thanks so much.
It was
Amazing. This is so cool. Thank you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to have you. That was honestly one of the best episodes we've
Yeah.
ever
That's
done.
cool.
I'm not
Thank
even
you.
kidding.
And now we know
love
what Mel
it.
C is right here.
But Business Untitled signing out.
Peace
Follow,
out.
like,
Like.
watch, subscribe. See you next week.